Hello everyone. Today we have with us distinguished Toastmaster George Marshall. He has been a member for 15 years and has earned 3 DTS. His home club is Star Search, apart from which he is currently a part of 3 different clubs, one of which is an online club, Online Presenters. He was also the Chief Pathways Guide for District 57's launch as the very first Pathways pilot district. And also, he led the launch for the undistrict clubs, for which he received the Toastmasters Presidential Citation. And last but not the least, he is the producer of District 57 TV show, Toastmaster Time. Welcome, George.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
First of all, I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and I feel really privileged to be talking to you right now.
I'm happy to be here and help you.
And congratulations for having successfully completed almost 22 years of Toastmaster Time TV. We'd love to hear the story of your journey as a channel.
Certainly. The District 57 TV show, which is called Toastmaster Time, was started, as you say, about 22 years because one member in our district wanted to be on television. Mimi wanted to have a TV show. And she found some other people, some kindred spirits in the district that were also very interested in it. With the time, the local cable channel provided no-cost public access TV studios, so the production part was dealt with. And she started the show. In fact, as you can see on our website, which I'll tell you about later, you can actually view that very first show from 1997.
That is really amazing how one person can start such a thing that lasts for more than 20 years. How often is the show telecast?
We produce a new show every month. So we go in the studio once a month and record a new show, and we put it up on YouTube for everyone to see. In addition, it's also played on our local cable channel several times a month. So we consider YouTube to be our primary broadcast media, but it is going out to a number of local cable channels also.
That's really fascinating that even the local cable channels have partnered and they are telecasting the show. That's really great achievement in my opinion. Could you tell us how we from District 92 can follow the show? Is it YouTube?
I'm glad to tell you that. I'm going to give you 2 websites. I've even prepared a sign for you. So Toastmastertime.com is the show's website. It contains information about being on the show, other details, what it means to be on there. And there's a link both to the older shows, which I mentioned, as well as the new one. And then the lower website is our YouTube channel where you can see about the last 5 or 6 years of TV shows. And again, we post a new one every month.
Amazing. And having gone through the YouTube channel, there was a recent time-lapse video also present in the YouTube that was really a pleasure to watch.
It's a lot of fun. It takes about 2.5 hours to produce a show, and it takes about a dozen people. I mean, this is a real professional quality TV studio, and we put a lot of time and effort into doing it.
Yes, I can only imagine the amount of effort it goes to produce a video of 5 to even 7 minutes. What has been your most memorable feedback that you have gotten about the channel?
We have different kinds of feedback, and I'd like to share some of them with you. The first one is from people that have been on the show. And the typical reaction to someone that's spoken on the show in this very strange, unusual environment of the TV studio, the first thing they say is, "Oh, that was very hard." The second thing they say is, "When can I come back and do it again?"
I'm sure you'd love when a member say that.
Yeah, we've also got some other great feedback. Since we post the videos on YouTube, our members can send their videos to anyone, anywhere in the world, including many of our members originally came from some other country. And one guy got back to us and said, "Well, I sent it to my parents and friends, and they were very happy, but they told me I'd gained weight."
And let me tell you, okay, I've gone to the channel, and apart from the normal speeches, there are some very good videos which has good amount of learning. There's a lot of learning in those videos. It tells us about how to prepare a speech. I think that was one that you gave a speech on. So really good content there.
There's one other thing I'd like to mention, which is if you looked at some of the videos, you see that we have featured youth leadership program speakers. These are the young folks, typically high school age. Those shows have more views than anything else we do. And we shot not only the young speakers themselves, but we brought in some of our YLP coordinators to explain how the program works. And those have a very, very large number of views, and I think it helped a lot of people.
Yes, and I think it also helps the audience to know more about the Toastmaster programs, because I had been a part of YLP, but I know a lot of people who never even knew about this program for Toastmasters.
Yes, it's a great program.
Yes. Okay. So, what is your message of encouragement to Toastmasters to step out of their clubs and speak on the show?
There's really two reasons why people come on the show. The first thing that we tell them is this is a way to speak in a very different world. If you want to challenge yourself, if you want to become a better speaker by dealing in different environments, the TV show is the way to do it. Because when you speak in the studio, it's dark. You can't see the back except for the very bright lights overhead changing you. There usually is no audience at all. And of course, it's just a very different environment. So we challenge people that way. Some of our members want to come on the show because they have a message for their fellow Toastmasters and for their fellow citizens around the world. And those have been very popular shows too, where they get a chance to know that their message will get out to a lot more people than perhaps they could do by themselves.
I'm sure, because I was about to ask you and you already answered how different is the experience. And it looks to be a completely different experience when we speak at a club and when we speak in a studio.
It's very different. It's very different.
We'd be delighted to know some of the experiences from this initiative. A few things that worked really well and some areas where you really struggled with this initiative.
I'd be glad to talk about that. There's some positive and some not quite so great experiences. When the current leadership team, myself and my colleagues, took over, the first thing we did was to undertake a high-performance leadership project to examine every single aspect of the show and decide on some new formats. Some of those work. For example, the concept of having guest speakers has been around forever. We invite our District 57 members on. We also planned originally to have guest hosts, that is someone new from a different club every time. That didn't work out so well because it turns out that the host really needs to understand how the show works. They essentially have to have the timeline for the show in their head, and that turned out to be difficult. We've constantly tuned the show. The shows now look superficially like the one from several years ago, but in fact, we've constantly changed the format, the timing, the background, and so forth. One thing we're very proud of is we've had 2 presidents of Toastmasters International on our show. We had 2 different international directors and a regional advisor. Another thing we do that's worked out well is that we host the trio, the 3 elected district officers, top district officers, every year at the beginning of the Toastmaster year, so they can go on TV and tell the district what their plans are and introduce themselves. Some of the things that don't work so well, the show has fixed timing. You have 28 minutes and 30 seconds, not 5 minutes more or 10 minutes less. You know, in our club, we just sort of adapt to changes. This is TV. You've got to fit in the slot they give you available, so it's a challenge. And of course, the other thing, have you ever had someone not show up for your club meeting, a speaker that didn't show up? Well, you substitute, right? Hey, when you got a TV show and people came 50, 60 miles to be on the show, you got to figure it out. So recruiting talent, dealing with the normal problems has been an issue. Overall, it's been a wonderful thing. It's the reason why I and my colleagues have stuck with it so much. It's quite a challenge, but it's very satisfying as well.
I'm sure I can only imagine how satisfying it would be. So you talked about the show being, format of the show being changing gradually. So how different is the show that was aired in 1997 from the show that aired in 2019?
Let me tell you what's the same. That's easier. What's the same is there's a host and there are 2 to 3 speakers speaking on the topic of their choice. What's changed is the studio. We no longer record in the studio we used to. That's not available anymore. The host used to stand up with a long cable trailing from the microphone talking. The host now sits at a table with wireless mics. The studio used to be very, very bare and unappealing. We've put a lot of effort into looking what the background does. We went from 2 speakers to 3 speakers. We've invented and put out their public service announcements that we use sometimes, the Toastmasters public service announcements. We've introduced the concept of an evaluator that we didn't have when we originally started the show. And we also get people to talk from a specific project or manual. So it's still Toastmasters, people still speak, but every single aspect of the show has been adjusted in one way or the other.
Okay, that's amazing to hear. Okay. One last question for you. You are a veteran Toastmaster of 15 years. So how has Toastmasters helped you personally?
Oh, it's been a phenomenal help to me. When I joined, I was in the midst of my career, and it was one of those downtimes in Silicon Valley, and I was between jobs. I used to be the company spokesman. I was comfortable speaking. I thought, well, I better get to Toastmasters and stay in practice because it may take a while to find the next job. I soon realized that I was improving. I thought I had a very high opinion of my own speaking. I realized that I was improving with every meeting, and I was sold forever. Now my primary interest in Toastmasters is in helping others gain those same skills, mentoring people, starting new clubs, and helping everyone become better. So I really, really like Toastmasters. I'll never leave Toastmasters.
Yes. And I think I'll have to agree with you. Even if you come to a meeting and do not take any role, just sit there. There will be some improvement at the end of the hour or hour and a half of the meeting.
Yes, any meeting helps, although if I don't speak at a meeting, I feel sad. Some role, table topics, counter, grammarian, speaker, whatever it is. I joined Toastmasters to talk.
Yeah, and I'm sure you love that. So before we leave, I'd like to inform our audience that George also runs a Tools for Toastmasters website, which provides very useful summaries and analysis on Toastmasters award and DCB data. You can log on to www.marshalls.org/tmtools. Is that right?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
For anyone listening to this and who is curious and wants to know more about Toastmasters Time TV, you can log on to www.toastmasterstime.com, which George already showed you. And thank you, George. Thank you again for your time. It was wonderful having you here.
I enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.